Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome back to Islamic Finance and Properties. आज हम लोग बड़ा इंटरेस्टिंग किस्म का टॉपिक लिया हुआ है जिसके अंदर हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं कन्वेंसिंग की. हमारे साथ है निहाल मंगरियो, पाकिस्तान सिंध से हैं, सिंधी, हमारे पहले सिंधी भाई. ये यहाँ पर कन्वेंसिंग करते हैं, लीगल लिटिगेशन करते हैं और सो काइंड ऑफ यू टू कम. थैंक यू सो मच. एंड मुझे हमेशा मैं यही कहता हूँ कि कोविड के ज़माने में ये भी करना बड़ी हिम्मत की बात है. सो एक्स्ट्रा थैंक यू फ्रॉम मी एंड फ्रॉम ऑल आवर व्यूअर्स एज वेल. आई एम श्योर कि दे वुड ऑल्सो लाइक टू थैंक यू. अच्छा निहाल, हम लोग बात कर रहे थे, व्हाट वी वर टॉकिंग अबाउट was कि the contract is there and everything. अब की खर्चा पानी होएगा जो if you're acting on the buyer solicitors, because I know from your point of view कि buyer solicitors have more, actually उनका खर्चा ज़्यादा होता है और उनका वो काम भी ज़्यादा होता है.
Absolutely. Yeah. अब खर्चे का depends है, like a legal cost I cannot say it varies from
solicitor to
solicitor. But general अगर आप conveyancing कर रहे हैं, a local law solicitor है तो उसकी around £1,200, roughly £1,200 to £1,500 they charge. That's the range of property up to £500,000 कि ये उनकी legal cost है. ठीक है,
वो legal cost तो आप छोड़ देना because that depends on solicitor. अच्छा, अब आप मुझे ये बताएं कि what is the first thing that you have to do?
Well, once you receive, coming back to now, you receive the contract. अपने contract आ गया, pre-contract package में आपके पूरी property की details होगी. उसमें map होगा property का, general जो land registry का map. उसमें आपको पता चल जाएगा. We do the title investigation of title. First, we do the investigation of title, saying that is this the property the buyer is selling? Does that correspond with the contract? Is the property is exactly what is the same property what your client is looking to purchase? Then you investigate what type of covenant, restrictions, easements, these things. ये हम बाद में आएंगे.
नहीं, ये आप बाद में ना करें, ठीक है, ये आप सबसे पहले करें. अब आप मुझे ये बताइए covenants or easements and all these things, what does it actually mean? What are these things? For instance, covenants, I think there's positive covenants as well.
Yeah.
And तो आप in your language, please explain to our viewers what these things are.
Gladly. So covenants basically is a promise which is registered. आप जो property का when this title was registered, UK में पहले ना majority of properties were not registered. They were unregistered titles. So जब property registered, तभी भी covenants होते थे. तो वो क्या करते थे? They will register it on the covenant register. आप अगर कोई if easy and convenient अगर आपके viewer का वो अपनी property का title उठा के देखेंगे, उसमें generally there are 3 topics. The first topic is first heading is it says the property register. Second heading is proprietor register, and third heading is charges register. So property register में आपकी property की information होगी. जो proprietor register उसमें जो property का owner है उसकी सारी details होंगी. जो charges register है ना, normally all of the covenants are in under the heading of charges register. उसमें अगर आपके property के ऊपर lease है land के ऊपर, वो भी उसमें registered होता है as a notice. जो positive, and there people say positive covenants or negative, sometimes it's called some solicitor say as a restrictive covenant.
Sorry, please carry on. Carry on.
Yeah, restrictive or positive covenants. जो normally जो positive covenants होते हैं ना, that mean a benefit. You receive a benefit from other property, such as saying that other person will pay to maintain the boundary wall or fence of your property. जो ये होता है positive covenant. Restrictive covenant, normally a solicitor, positive covenant जो होता है वो जो बना covenantees होता है ना, जो बंदा create करता है, अगर वो positive है, जब ही that person changes the title, the covenant does not go with the property.
All right, okay.
If it doesn't touch it only benefits the owner of the property. When you sell it, your promise dies when you sell.
Okay.
ये हो गया positive. Restrictive or उसको negative जो covenants होता है, that touches and benefits the land. जो covenant benefits land को करता हो, वो कभी change नहीं होता unless you find the person who drafted this covenant, and if he gives you permission to remove it, then you can remove it. Otherwise, that will remain on the title for normally properties. You will see the Mr. X and Y promise not to build or park a caravan in front of their property. Thus, in the front thing, that's a negative covenant, and that will continue to run with the property until the original person who drafted it, you meet and the person waves you off from it. इसका जो नुकसान ये होता है, sometime you buy the property and you say I want to buy a property, then my plans are मैं इसको convert करूँगा as a front property and पीछे extension करने की मैं कोशिश करूँगा. Sometime properties will have these sort of restrictive covenants on the property saying that the owner of this property cannot build double-story extension at the back. They can only extend single-story extension, or the other they would say that the person who has this property will contribute toward the maintaining of the boundary wall or fence. तो as a solicitor हमें ये सारी investigation, ये सारी चीज़ें पता चलती हैं title investigation में. उसके बाद हम इसके ऊपर रेज करते हैं कि जब कहते हैं कि आप you contribute toward the maintaining the boundary fence, left hand fence or right hand of the property, or south side or west side or east or north side, whatever how it is described, then you go back to the seller, you ask the seller how much money you were paying to the person for maintaining this, how often did you manage this, and what is the color, who will select the color theme, and what type of work, who will commission the contractor. क्योंकि ये बाद में बहुत problem होते हैं. आप करने जाएं वो कहते हैं नहीं, I don't accept this person. You paint something and the person who done the covenant, that would say, oh, this is not the color I had in mind. These sort of things will cause future problems. That's why as a buyer solicitor, we investigate and we mitigate then we tell.
So you mitigate any problems at all?
Absolutely.
All right, okay, that's fine. That's fantastic. That's great.
Yeah.
अच्छा, Nazreen, number नीचे चल रहा है 0208-662-4550. आप लोग फ़ोन कर सकते हैं if you're selling or buying a property and you wanted to find out something or the other. वैसे तो हम लोग एक general सब कुछ cover कर ही रहे हैं, लेकिन certainly it would be nice to speak to some of you as well. Thank you. अच्छा हाँ, तो वो covenants का हो गया, सारा कुछ हो गया. Then what's the next stage?
Easements. Some of the easements. So, for example, your easements are the person's way of access, or like on top of your property. So if there is easement, say Mr. John lives or Mr. Murad lives on behind your property, and if they're written that Mr.
Murad, basically it's generally just to grant them permission, even if it is a right of path, right of way.
Right of way. Easements are right of way.
ठीक है, all right, okay. So right of way आपका आ गया, तो उसके अंदर आपकी shared driveway or anything like that.
You cannot stop that person, such as your utilities and things like that. They have a right of way on your property at the front. You cannot stop them because they have a general right of way on it. और title investigation जब हम करते हैं तो उसमें हम वो establish करने के बाद हम property के ऊपर investigation करते हैं. We call it a property investigation. वो होती है local land charges register, local property local authority searches. Local authority searches में you go more into the details, such as is there any problem, the property had any problem of flooding and landsliding, what you call it, subsiding, subsidence, yes, that's the word, sorry, I was looking for subsidence का issue है, या आपके घर के सामने tree है, sometime you have a tree at the front of which looks very old, you sometimes think, oh, this is a really nice tree in front of it, it's add to my property like a deco, but that tree could be dangerous because that tree's roots can actually disrupt the foundation of the property, and your neighbors can actually claim from you and may ask you to have this tree removed, and that can cost a lot of £1,000s.
Yeah, absolutely.
All of these things will become visible when you do the local authority search. उसमें environment search होती है, water search होती है, and all the utilities search that will tell who your water supply is.
Just if you could just मैं पहले कॉल पे चलते हैं फिर we'll carry on with this. जी अस्सलाम वालेकुम. हेलो.
जी मैं अस्सलाम वालेकुम, आवाज़ आ रही है आपको?
जी बिल्कुल आ रही है. अस्सलाम वालेकुम.
वालेकुम अस्सलाम जी, मैं अस्मा बात कर रही हूँ लंदन से.
आसमा.
जी
जी.
जी मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था बेसिकली, मैं कुछ मुझे क्वेश्चन है बेसिकली ये है कि मुझे अगर रीमॉर्गेज घर करवाना है अपना, ठीक है, तो मुझे कितनी देर हो जानी चाहिए घर खरीदे को? कितनी देर के बाद आप रीमॉर्गेज करवा सकते हैं अपना घर? ठीक है
आसमा, नो प्रॉब्लम्स. कोई और जी
जी सॉरी, एक और मैं रीमॉर्गेज करवा के जो मैं उससे पैसे निकलवाऊं, तो अगर मैंने एक और प्रॉपर्टी देखी है, मैं वो लेना चाहूँ, तो मुझे फिर स्टैम्प ड्यूटी देनी पड़ेगी उसके लिए भी?
जी बिल्कुल ठीक है. ओके, आपका कोई और क्वेश्चन?
नहीं, मुझे अभी ये मेरे लिए बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट है. अगर
अच्छा
आप
सॉरी, आप ये पूछ रहे हैं कि जब आप, अच्छा राइट, ओके, सो आप ये पूछ रहे हैं, आपको पहला सवाल ये है कि आप रीमॉर्गेज करवा सकती हैं पहले अपनी प्रॉपर्टी?
हाँ जी, और कितने साल हो जाने चाहिए?
राइट, ओके. सो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल इसका अगेन मैं आपको जनरल एडवाइस दूंगा आसमा. रीमॉर्गेज आप 100% करवा सकती हैं, इट्स नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, लेकिन देयर आर सर्टेन थिंग्स टू लुक एट. फॉर इंस्टेंस, अगर आपका फिक्स रेट है तो देयर विल बी अ पेनल्टी. मोस्ट बैंक्स, अगर आपका फिक्स रेट मॉर्गेज है, so most banks will then penalize, they will have a redemption penalty. ठीक है, तो ये तो आपने ये फैक्टर भी देखना है. और नंबर 2 फैक्टर आपने ये देखना है कि is there enough equity in the property to remortgage? That's another thing you have to look at as well. So there are certain factors that you have to look at before you remortgage, but theoretically no problem whatsoever. Yes, you can. अच्छा, जो आपका सेकंड क्वेश्चन था regarding the stamp duty.
जी
ठीक है, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी आपका, अब मुझे करेक्ट मी इफ आई एम रॉन्ग, आपका सवाल ये था कि रीमॉर्गेज जब आप कराएंगे डू यू नीड टू पे अ स्टैम्प ड्यूटी? नो, यू डोंट नीड टू पे अ स्टैम्प ड्यूटी एट द पॉइंट ऑफ रीमॉर्गेजिंग योर हाउस. ठीक है, बट you want to buy another property, therefore yes, stamp duty will be payable, right? Okay, now
जी
stamp duty जो है, it is different, it goes up in tiers. ठीक है, डिपेंडिंग ऑन व्हाट प्राइस यू बाय इट एट, आपको उसी प्राइस की. लेकिन बिकॉज दिस विल बी अ सेकंड प्रॉपर्टी, तो इसके अंदर स्टैम्प ड्यूटी के अंदर अगर आप ये देख लें असम्पशन कि +3% होगा. सो व्हाटएवर अ नॉर्मल पर्सन इज पेइंग, whatever a normal person is paying, +3%.
Yeah, first time buyer plus you put additional 3%.
ठीक है, आई होप दैट आंसर्स योर क्वेश्चन.
हाँ जी समझ आ गई मुझे.
Thank you so much, Asma. Thank you for calling us. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Asma. That was Asma from London. Remortgage का पूछ रही थी.
You are better at the remortgage side of it.
तो हमने जवाब भी दे दिया. अच्छा, ये स्टैम्प ड्यूटी का थोड़ा सा ज़रा आप, बल्कि अच्छा कि आसमा ने पूछ लिया स्टैम्प ड्यूटी का भी, इसका थोड़ा सा ज़रा हमें आप और रोशनी डाल दें.
नहीं, स्टैम्प ड्यूटी, if we can conclude when, because this comes at the post exchange of completion होती है ना, थर्ड जो फाइनल टास्क होता है बायर के सोलिसिटर का, हम उसमें स्टैम्प ड्यूटी करेंगे. देन वी ब्रेक इट डाउन, द पर्सन, इफ योर व्यूअर वांट टू परचेज द प्रॉपर्टी, देन दे नो व्हिच स्टेज ऑफ द ट्रांजैक्शन दे आर एट. So if you want, we can talk about now, but I think would it be better, should we leave it at that?
ठीक है, okay.
Yeah.
Just
So we come, once the property result, everything came, like your investigation of the property searches came perfectly fine. You have disclosed everything to your client, and the person who's buying, you say, look, you are buying this property, this has these sort of easements, these sort of covenants, are you happy with it? And you will explain it to the person what's covenants and what are things. If then because you are at this stage, you are still able to walk away from, because nothing has been exchanged. Only money you will lose is most likely is the solicitor's money you paid for the disbursements and things like that, or solicitor's cost, depending on what contract you have, what retainer you have given into a solicitor. इस टाइम पे अगर आप कहते हैं no, this is no property I'm looking for, you can walk away, no money loss, only maximum few hundreds you lost. अगर आप ये सारी चीज़ ना करते, you have exchanged the contract. Once you exchange the contract, then there are two things. You cannot pull back. You can pull back, but you would lose the deposit, or the person who's
There'd
selling
be a
it.
penalty.
There is a penalty, plus the person can actually
Sue
seek
you.
order to complete. He can make a notice, he can serve notice on your notice to complete. On that, depending on what sort of, what's written in your contract, normally law society rates apply if there is absence. You have not stipulated, because sometimes buyers do put, sellers do put penalty in anything that if you don't complete on the date of completion, we would charge so and so per day, depending on it, and until you date you complete. If you don't complete, then we will ask for that much compensation. This is basically, contract is once you exchange it, it's a legal binding contract. There are penalties if you breach it, and there is a normal, penalties are for the breach of contract. Whatever is written in it, you are liable to pay for it. The person who's buying from you or selling, if you have a property, if you cannot pay them, they might come and attach the whatever the money you owe them from the judgment, they can attach it to your property, obtain a legal charge on it. Then basically, that property, you are legally bound to pay them. Even you don't pay them now, they might ask you at the time of, if you want to sell, remortgage, all these are things. First you need to pay them, then you will get a consent to do anything changes to the your title of the property. So now we come to the exchange time. Exchange time, depending on if you are buying normally the property, either property you buy as the people are selling property, they want to buy another property. So if there is a chain, its normal word is used as chain. If there is a chain, then it takes longer. Basically, that
Of course, because everybody else has to be prepared as well.
Absolutely, the buyer has to sell his property. Buyer has to sell his property to move into the new one. Seller has to find a new property.
आप वो छोड़ दें, आप chain वाला को छोड़ दें. अब आप बताएं कि क्या करते हैं हम लोग.
Then you come into the after exchange, you pay the deposit. Then you will have, depending on what is your completion, normally maximum is about 28 days. You give it to, depending how long you want to make a contract. This is between the parties, and parties will agree on the exchange date. You have to complete on the, otherwise what we talked about, there will be a breach of contract. After the contract is exchanged, basically contract is exchanged, then you you do the bankruptcy search on the person who's selling it, because you do.
I think your bankruptcy search. This is very interesting, because I know that this is a legal requirement by the bank and actually by the FCA as well.
Yeah.
So, on what stage does the bankruptcy search come into?
I tend to personally, every person has their way of doing it. I do a 2 bankruptcy search. First, the time when I receive the contract, then I see the person has got nothing pending. Can he complete? Because I don't want to go through spending money for my client, ordering the searches and those sort of things. And at the time of exchange of contract, this person cannot extend you. Then I would be not doing my job right if I don't do it at the start of it. At the start, I do it. This person doesn't go, nothing pending. Everything is clear. He can sell it. There's no charges, no register on the property. Then I do it at the time of exchange of contract as well.
So just before exchange of contracts, you would do another bankruptcy search. How long does it take for the bankruptcy search to come back?
Bankruptcy normally is in couple of days, depending. Now it's more straightforward, comes in a day as well as sometime. Depends what type of portal you use. You send it to land charges office, and they come back to, they give, there's nothing pending.
£2-4 ही है ना इसके cost.
Yeah, it's
cost
about
it's
minimum.
Really minimum. But अच्छा, right, okay, so you do it twice, but most solicitors have their own way of doing it.
Absolutely, because because your duty is you have to protect your client. And the buying a property is one of the biggest step a person takes in their life. This is the most important thing, most valuable thing they do. So I, as a person who's working in legal industry, I cannot do something which jeopardizes their the happiest moment, or I don't want to cause more problems. That's why I do it twice. And then we're coming to the completion time. If you're buying money, if the property is bought with the aid of mortgage or assistance of mortgage, you request the mortgage funds. Come into your bank, you ask your client to pay, if there is any, apart from 10% deposit, is he contributing anything more, you ask the request, you send a completion statement, that completion statement will incorporate everything. You will tell your client, say, look, you are buying this property for this much, this is stamp duty, this is money for searches, this is money for any other disbursements, such as any out-of-pocket expenses.
And once all of these things are done, then we're in a position to exchange contracts.
No, contract exchange, this is completion. Contract
Okay,
exchange,
okay, so completion, that's
completion.
right. Okay, right.
Because normally when you exchange a contract, you tend not to get a mortgage at that time. Mortgage advance doesn't come, because exchange of contract is normally the contributed money comes from the
That's right, of course, absolutely, from the
then. And then at the completion time, you send the completion statement. You receive a completion statement from the seller side. He said, look, I need this much money to complete.
Right, that's fine. And then we sorted that out, and then completion money goes across, and that's job
That's
done.
it.
Nihal, thank you so much. हम लोग actually time हमारा खत्म हो गया.
Yeah, I know.
So it's been very interesting, very informative. और thank you so much for coming, and
Thank you, Ali.
thank you so much for answering our questions as well.
Thank you.
नाज़रीन बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया, आप लोगों ने आज अच्छे सवाल भी पूछे. Amir from London and Asma from London, both. I hope कि अगर आप लोगों ने अपना टेलीफोन नंबर पीछे छोड़ा हुआ है तो I'd be able to give you a ring and talk to you more in detail in terms of what we can do and what we can't do. अगले हफ्ते हम लोग कोशिश करेंगे कि आपके लिए एक और प्रोफेशनल लेके आएँ. आप लोगों से बहुत बहुत अच्छा लगा मुलाकात करके. आप लोगों की मेरी तरफ से और निहाल की तरफ से
Thank you very much.
खुदा हाफिज़. Thank you so much for watching Islamic Finance and Properties. अगले हफ्ते फिर ज्वाइन करेंगे आप हमें. Until next week, Allah Hafiz.